Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking me to do
Oh
it.
yeah, it's great. Yeah, I appreciate it. I know you're like super busy.
Well, it's kind of slow right now, so it actually is a good time.
Well, good.
But
I'll just take off. I'll just talk to you for a couple hours then. You know, you've cast a ton of fantastic stuff, but I mean, uh, casting a historical drama, I think that would be like the most work ever.
yeah, it definitely is challenging casting these types of shows. I did the other historical drama that I cast was obviously The Butler. Um Lee Daniels-Butler, my brother's movie, which was also a historical drama and very, very, also very challenging. So yeah, so I think when you come up across these sorts of projects, it's very, you have a lot of research that you have to do, but good research. I'm not a history buff, so it actually, helps me with learning a lot of things that I didn't know about, how this country was sort of founded in a way.
Like, are you looking for, because you're casting real people, obviously, so are you looking for like pictures if they're available, like finding books or documents to read descriptions of certain characters?
Well, there's a lot of source material, especially with characters like, Abraham Lincoln and Booth and, these players that were a part of the conspiracy that led to the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. There's so much source material that the producers and the director of the show provide you with. But in addition to when I'm actually casting, I still want to do my own little research just so I can have some idea of like who these characters are, what the essence of these characters are, because ultimately you're not going to find a lookalike. We don't want to find someone that looks like someone. We want someone that actually bears some resemblance, but for the most part, really just identifies who this character was and captures the essence of who this character was.
How do you cast Lincoln? I mean, in my now, like in my head, I have Daniel Day-Lewis floating in it, you know?
Well, because of that, it's funny that you say that because of that, it was very hard to cast that because no one wanted to go behind Daniel Day-Lewis because he did such a phenomenal job in portraying that character, and it's so very well embedded in everybody's head. People just know who he is. So for that role, so it was difficult. Trying to find someone that sort of matched all the elements that we were looking for. Obviously, you know that Lincoln was a very tall man. He was like something I think like 6'2" or 6'3".
Back then, I feel like that was a giant.
It was a giant. So you have these people that play him that sort of play into the height of it. Obviously, Hamish is not that tall, but we were able to pull it off just with obviously the supporting people around him. I don't think we played too much on the height of it all. Obviously, that was one of the things. But really, I think with Hamish, it's just we came up with lists and ideas. I worked very closely with the studio. With their casting department and with our producers in identifying someone that we knew ultimately would really resonate with that role and would do it justice.
Did he have to, like, when you contacted him, did he have to audition or like, what was the process of hiring him?
No, meetings and creative conversations between the studio and the producers and the talent. It was just more, they just had to get on a creative playing field. How they both saw the character and what he could do differently. Because what I do appreciate about this story is that this is less about Lincoln. You know what I mean? It's more about the conspiracy and the manhunt of what really happened. You know what I mean? I think it's more of, it's Stanton and Anthony Boyle. I'm sorry, Anthony Boyle, who played Charles Wilkes Booth. It's between, you know what I mean? It's Booth and Stanton's sort of um, relationship, if you will, and how that how that sort of just rolled out, you know what I mean? And getting all those people and finding out all the people that were involved in the conspiracy and their backstories and what they did and how they played a part in it. Um, Lincoln obviously, you know, is a very pivotal, you know, part in this movie, but I don't think that it was really, it was about what he, you know, about him per se, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to talk to you about Anthony Boyle. I mean, he was great. I also had like this preconceived vision of Booth, but here he plays him like an actual human, not like this looming sort of menacing figure, you know? And it's just just really, really good.
Brilliant, brilliant. You know, and he auditioned for a couple of roles, if I'm not mistaken, for it wasn't just Booth. But I think ultimately when he the process of his in the process during the process of his auditioning, you just knew that this was the role that he was meant to play. But you know, obviously people have reservations when you're playing such historical figures, you know, talent, especially talent that really respect the craft and respect what they have to do and what, you know, they know that it's going to get a lot of attention. They have questions and they want to make sure that this is the right fit. They're going to be with these people for a very long period of time. You know, we shot this for a long period of time. So you just want to make sure everything is right, you know?
What was the hardest role to cast?
You know, I want to say, let's see, what was the hardest role to cast? Probably Booth. I think it was. They were all very challenging, though. I'm not gonna lie, because when we were auditioning people, they went through a sort of period where we were changing ages, and then we didn't want to change the age too much so that it wasn't true to the actual age of the characters that were playing, that actually, you know, played that were the real people. So we wanted to make sure, but there were some things that we had to take liberty on when it came time to actually casting the roles. There were actors who read for several different parts, but we had to kind of move the pieces around like a puzzle because it was like, okay, they fit in this world, but where do they go? You know, same with Edward Stanton Jr. Like that character, we aged him up and down quite a bit before we identified him as sort of being in that same age range as Booth, um, who were the other Lewis Powell, who Spencer Treat Clark did an amazing job as uh, 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 of Lewis Powell, who was the one who actually started off the sort of massacre, if you will. Um, so yeah, so I think with that, it was just trying to find out who was going to be the right fit for what role, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love watching like shows that are set in different time periods. Do you have sometimes have like difficulty finding actors, especially like the smaller roles, day players, who can fit into that period of time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting that because well, I didn't do the local casting. A lot of the local casting, some of the smaller roles I wasn't a part of. Obviously, I was a part of like kind of overseeing, you know, those roles after, you know, once they're presented to producers. But we have a lovely casting director that I work with all the time. Her name is Megan Lewis. And her and her team at RPM, they're great. Like they know the Southeast region like the back of their hand. So it was the casting seemed like one office as opposed to, oh, sometimes when you watch a project, you can tell whether it's a movie or a series, you can tell, oh, these people did this casting and this was done locally. It was very seamless because
Mhm.
she's been doing this for so long um and again, she just knows the talent in that region. So it was a perfect, you know, a perfect recipe.
What would you tell actors who are auditioning for these types of period films?
Do research. Really do the research as much as you can prior to auditioning, and especially in this age of self-taping that we're in, it's really important to try to get that have that come across on your self-tape. um, you know, it just you have some actors who just instinctively know because they have been you know, professionally trained and they know, and not that, if if you didn't go to Juilliard or one of the or Tisch or one of the other schools, that you don't have that professional training. But I think a certain amount of sort of levity comes with a certain, when you train at a certain theater through a certain theater program, so they understand things. And those actors generally come fully prepared. But then when you have someone who may have just like a great energy and a great look and a raw talent, but something's not quite there, it's just like, make sure you do your research. Do you know what I mean? If you know that you don't have the training that some of these other actors may have, then I would just say, just do as much research as you can, coach with someone if you can afford that, request, auditions with the casting director so we can kind of give you those nuances that we'll be looking for when it comes time to actually show your self-tape. Do you know what I mean? So I would just say just research as much as you can.
Do you, when you watch self tapes, like what don't you do not want to see? Like what are some things that you always see that you're like, no,
It's self-taping is hard.
it
So I
is.
don't want to criticize anybody's self-tape. I really can't, because I know what some of the struggles are with actors who are at home self-taping. You know what I mean? The only thing that I would say really just focus on is like making sure your lighting and your sound is good. You know what I mean? That's all we really want to do. We want to see you. We want to be able to hear you. Not have too much of a distraction in the background. You know what I mean? If you can go up against a blank wall, then great. If you can't, just I don't want to see a dirty kitchen in the background. I don't want to see a dirty bedroom. You know what I mean? Like, I want to focus on you. So certain things I just think that are common sense is really what I would tell someone, that's working from a self tape. But I can't criticize too badly because I already know what the struggles that they're up against.
I once did a self tape and I was finished and I packed up everything and I was, working on sending it and I saw my cat's tail just behind me walking in the background. And I didn't
Now
have,
that's amusing though. That's actually funny. Like, we'll just, there's some things where, we're just like laughing, like, oh my God. So some things add character to it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, sometimes I watch tape and I'm just like, yo, this is hilarious. And I'm gonna keep this tape in because I actually like this. But
Mhm.
again, I would just, I don't want to you know, have the actor stress about other things when really it should just be about performance and lighting and sound when you're self-taping.
If you see something on a self tape that you sort of can work with, you're like, oh, I like this, but do you go back and tell them the reps or something like that? Say, hey, can they do it this way, or give them like notes?
Yeah. I mean, if I can, you know what I mean? If I can and I have time, then I will try to get them on a Zoom so I can give them the notes and tape it myself, through Zoom. But if I can and we don't have that luxury, then I'm just like, I'll give them specific notes. Hey, this is where you may want to think about this, or this is where you may want to change your cadence, or, I hear your accent slipping in and out, like things like that. Yeah, I will definitely give them a note. Or if I'm sending these off as sort of pre-reads, if you will, then I'm going to tell the producer or the director, hey, this is just their interpretation. If there's something that you like about this character, this person, and they didn't hit every nail on the head, we can always bring them back in for a callback session. And you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Just to try to get, because it's hard for them to see it. It's hard for the actor. It's not the most ideal situation, but we have to make the best of what we got.
Right, right. Do you like the fact that you can watch self tapes now? I mean, it takes a lot of time off your hands, I would think.
Well, it definitely does. I'm still like doing a sort of a hybrid. But I've always done the hybrid. It wasn't even before the sort of rule came down with SAG that they say, hey, if an actor requests a Zoom or an in-person audition, you have to try to, accommodate if you have space. And I'm fine with that, because you'd be surprised, as much as they fought for it, how many people don't take advantage of it. You know, they'll if I get a request for an audition, generally, when we do them, it's not very many people that are requesting the in-person auditions because, again, like everything else, people have come sort of accustomed to doing this on their own time and getting this, getting these tapes to us. I think the only advantage for the actor in the self-tape space is that they get to have a little more time to bring it in, to submit it to us. But other than that, um, it's crazy because before we started this sort of self-taping thing and everything was in person, we were holding our in-person auditions and self-tapes. It was just like, okay, well, I can't guarantee I'm gonna look at it self-tape. You know what I mean? That's sort of the energy it was had because these actors that were coming in were getting sort of the priority, if you will, unless I requested a self-tape and the actor wasn't in town. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or if I'm casting actors, and my producers aren't in town. You know what I mean? And I have to, but I'm taping them. I'm in the room with them. I'm giving them that, one-on-one. And then the link that's being sent to the producers, it's it's still not an in-person link, but they understand that, it was a one-on-one with the casting director. So I mean, for me, I was always I was kind of doing that anyway. But it does allow for me to see and meet more people. And so I prefer the hybrid. I prefer being able to, if I'm going to have a Zoom session or, watch self tape because I'm meeting more people. I'm hiring, actors that I wouldn't normally probably have the chance because a lot of the smaller agencies, when you're under the gun, you don't necessarily go to the smaller agencies when you are trying to cast something quickly. You have to go to those agents that are going to deliver the talent that needs to be in front of that camera within sometimes 24 hours. You know
Right.
what I mean? So it it opened up for a lot of new talent for me. But it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, everything is no, but you can't please everybody all the time. You just can't.
Well, Lee, I think that is my time. Thank you so much for
Okay.
talking with me. I think you assemble some of the best casts around. So yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. I really appreciate hearing that, Lance.
Bye, and I hope I talk to you again soon.
All right, you too. Have a wonderful day.